see behind me, I have a 2008 Gsxr 750, and let's go ahead and dive in and we'll see what we're gonna do with this one. So just to show you a little bit of what's going on here, I'm not sure if I can get the camera very well in there, but as you can see, one of the header brackets has fallen off, and because of it, it actually stabbed the radiator, causing it to leak out. So we're definitely gonna have to replace this radiator, and looks like we're gonna have to replace those header bolts, which is not a big deal. Should be a pretty easy fix, and they're not hard to find. As long as we get some high temperature bolts, we should be good. So we're gonna start off by removing the front fairings, both right and left side. Looks like a couple bolts, one bolt here, one bolt here, one bolt here, possibly some clips in the middle. I'd have to check that. Most likely we got some clips in the inside as well, guys. We're gonna go ahead and take off the right side first and go from there. Should give us a more visibility of what's going on back there. One of the things I did forget to mention when removing these fairings, when removing all the bolts, don't forget you got these tabs that you have here, 1, 2, and the third one on top that come out of these rubber garments. So don't think there's a bolt there, just pull slowly, don't pull too hard because you don't want to break those tabs. So just make sure once you got all the bolts out, pull slowly out and it should come right out, guys. And as you can see there, guys, the coolant's still leaking there a little bit. But basically just punctured the radiator, so we're definitely gonna replace this radiator. So what I'm gonna do next, go ahead and drain the coolant, and then go ahead and start taking apart the radiator to make sure nothing else got bent or anything, and then go from there. In case I didn't know, guys, this is actually the drain from the water pump, and it's a slower way to get the coolant out, but it will work just as good as you removing one of these hoses, and plus this reduces less of a mess if you pull this hose out. We already got all the coolant out. We're gonna go ahead and start tearing off the left side, take this hose off, and then we're gonna move to the right side and unclamp this hose and the small one down here. And there should be 2 bolts on both sides that we're gonna loosen up, and the radiator should come apart. The next thing I got to do is remove the 10mm bolt that's holding the radiator in place. It's actually one on each side, one on the left, one on the right, and we also got one in the center, which is probably the easiest one to get to. I'll show you what the other one looks like. As you can see there, it's tucked under there. It's pretty easy to take out. Once we get all 3 of those out, the radiator should just come right out. One of the things I forgot to mention is don't forget to disconnect your radiator fan connection. All you gotta do is push down on this tab and slide it right out. As you can see here, here's the radiator. Fan is okay, there's nothing wrong with it. All we're gonna do is dismount it and put it on the new one, which is already on order and it should be here sometime this week. Here's the damage here. As you can see, it looks like it's very minor. It's enough to get the coolant coming out. The hit is on the very bottom, so as this bike is running, the hotter it gets, it'll be more pressurized and all the coolant will eventually come out through this hole anyways. Also, we're gonna go ahead and do a coolant flush on this because it might have some old coolant in the bike. And as I was saying earlier, here's a better look of what it looks like, what was going on with the headers. As you can see, this bracket here is just loose hanging down. All we're needing is 2 bolts. Really easy to fix. I just got to buy 2 more bolts to hold this in place. Only reason I took this one out is to see what size I'm gonna need on buying the other two for this pipe here. Before we put this all back together, we're gonna make sure all of them are tight. I did notice when I was taking this one off, it was already loose. So we're gonna go ahead and tighten all these. It's normal for these bolts to loosen with all the vibrations. So since we're already this deep, we're gonna go ahead and tighten all of them just in case. Okay, so it looks like we finally got the radiator in, guys. So let's see what it looks like. Okay, so it looks pretty good so far, guys. We're gonna go ahead and take off the plastic to see if there's any damage on the other side. Okay, so there you have it. I don't see any damage. I thought there was a couple of dents here, but it's just plastic. I gotta get out of there. But overall, guys, they shipped it pretty well. Again, this is a brand new radiator. It's not used. It also came with a cap. I didn't think it would come with a cap. But most likely, I'm probably going to use the OEM one anyway. So the next part we're going to do is go ahead and take off everything off the old one, put the new fan on, the hoses, put it all back together. The items we'll be putting on this one coming from the old radiator would be the reservoir. It's going to be on the right side of the radiator. And there's only one bolt that holds that, and it's different from all the other ones you're going to be putting on. The only other ones you will be putting on will be the radiator fan bolts, and they're threaded all the way. And the reservoir one is not. As you can see, it has a little bit of space there. These are the other three, as you can see, for the radiator fan. And by the way, they're all 10mm bolts. Do not forget to take off your grommets from the old radiator and be very careful with the spacer in the center. My advice would be put it on the side until you're finally ready to put the radiator on. The reason for it is if these fall out, the bolts will still hold in place, but the radiator won't be as secured as it would be if you had these spacers. So just keep that in mind. Don't lose those. Be very careful with them. Don't forget, on the top side of the radiator fan, you're going to need to take off the old clips from the old radiator, and they just slide right in there, okay? And the last thing I want to mention, guys, is if you noticed, I used my impact to remove the bolts. Do not use the impact to put them back on. Reason for it is the last thing you want to do is have them over torqued. They could puncture through the aluminum, this bolt, the bottom radiator bolt, or the bolt that holds onto the reservoir can puncture through, and you're gonna have a leak once again, okay? And you're gonna have to dive into either buying a new radiator once again, or you're gonna have to rig it with some kind of sealer just to get by. It's not worth it, guys. So just take it slow, use your hand ratchet, which I'll be using here to tighten those bolts, and you should be good to go. One thing I want to bring up when you put this back together, guys, just double check your fan. Make sure it's not hitting anything. In this case, mine is fine. There's clearance. Sometimes there's been times in the past where I had to bent these tabs just a hair. Reason for that, guys, if you put the bike all back together, you don't want to find out that this fan's hitting this radiator, because you're going to have to take it back apart, try to give it more clearance. Also, if this fan starts hitting the radiator, the fan won't be working like it should, and possibly your bike will start overheating slowly or maybe pretty fast, depending on how stuck this fan gets. We're gonna go ahead and dive into the front where the header bracket was, and we're gonna go ahead and put this back on with our new bolts and tighten everything back up. Then we can put the radiator back in. Okay, so from here, it's pretty much the same process in the beginning, like I showed you earlier in the video, taking it off. Same process, we're gonna put it back on. Hoses, brackets that hold the radiator to the frame itself, and harness connection for the radiator fan. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that and continue from there. All right, so everything's back in one piece, guys. All our hoses, small hoses, and the bolts that hold the radiator to the frame itself. I forgot to mention, guys, there was one grommet that I was missing. I realized when I was putting this back together, and I realized there was a big gap here. Don't forget to remove the last grommet on the bottom. Remember, there's the 2 grommets on top. One here, one there, and then the last one I forgot. All right, guys, so the next step we're gonna do is go ahead and put distilled water in the bike. And the reason why we wanna use distilled water, not tap water, is because long term, if you have any leftover tap water in the engine, it will cause corrosion, rust, anything in that sort. Distilled water will not. So guys, don't be cheap. It's like 80 cents to $1 per gallon, and you're probably gonna need 2 at most. So just to be on the safe side, just go ahead and get the right stuff just to make sure you don't have any problems in the future. After that, we're gonna let the engine run. When the fans kick on, that basically lets us know that the thermostat is actually open, so we got all that old coolant cycling through the whole engine. That is what we want. We wanna keep doing this until we start seeing clear water. We're almost done with this bike, so let's keep going. Finally down to the last part of the bike. Also want to mention an old friend of mine here, John. He's here to help me out. He likes to be interested in all these kind of bike stuff. So, what's up? Just be random. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Start on the right side and continue on from there. We finally got the bike back together, but I do want to say we got to clean the bike. The owner to this bike is pretty dirty, as you can see. I don't mean to call you out, Rob, but I told you I would. As you can see, I've never seen a bike with bird poop. So me and my friend John here are going to do a big favor to my friend's bike here and going to make this whole thing look brand new again. So we're going to go ahead and clean this thing pretty good. Some spit polish. Now that we got that on camera. And the last part of this video will just be showing how clean it gets. Guys, so we finally finished the bike. As you can see, it's nice and clean. My friend John here helped me out do that, all the hard technical spots that it was hard to reach to, and it's always best to have double eyes, so he caught everything I missed, and likewise with him. So again, like always, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button if you like what you see. Until then, guys, we'll see you on the next video.
All right.